Professor Dan down at the county store. He said, I've got a brain map and a whole lot more. He had a 5-eye word and a shining new grin. Straight from the online thesaurus, he was cashing them in. He said, vivid means cheap and opaque means clear. I said, damn, that ain't right. He said, I learned it this year. He talked so slick, you'd swear he knew the town, till you listen real close and the meaning fell down. He could tell you all about a polygraph test, every wire, every needle, every puff in the chest, what the sweat on your palm means, what the blink of your eye, how the little machine knows if you're telling a lie. He'd describe it in detail, every minuscule part, but the facts went missing like a hole in his heart. He was accurate sounding, but that's where it ends. A mile of good spelling in a yard of no sense. And he leaned right in like he had the cure for every old problem a person endures. Psychobabble, he'd murmur, I know how it goes. Then he'd trip on the jargon from his head to his toes. Professor Dan, oh, Professor Dan, he reads one page and he thinks he can. Professor Dan, oh, Professor Dan, all that noise no understand. Oh, Professor Dan. Professor Dan. He's an expert on hounds and the scent in the air, on police line chalk and a flashlight glare, on search and rescue where the mud runs deep, on the way a lost soul breaks and the secret won't keep. He'll talk addiction, trauma, ADHD, like every psychiatrist calls him up for free. Doc, what's your advice? To say with a grin, then he'll answer himself before the truth gets in. Professor Dan, oh, Professor Dan, he reads one page and he thinks he can. Professor Dan, oh, Professor Dan, all that noise no understand. Oh, Professor Dan. Oh, Professor Dan. Well, he's got every answer in a digital pile, but the more he explains it, the less it feels like he's got confidence, sure, and a dazzling pose. But he's mixing up wisdom with the words he chose. Now he's 10 feet taller in the key of G, still wrong as a fence post, plain as can be. He's a master of nothing, but he sure loves the sound of his own big opinions circling around. So if you need a lesson in what not to do, call Professor Dan and he'll prove it to you. He's full of big talk and a borrowed brain. Every word sounds smart, but it lands in the drain.
Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in, Denise. I didn't get a chance to greet you down there. So that's the finished version. Bit of time playing around yesterday. Just, yeah, couldn't help myself. Again, I've got Maddie up on screen as well because, like I said yesterday, Maddie's been on my mind quite a bit lately. Tomorrow is Maddie Monday, so I'll be doing a live stream again, talking about Jennifer Soto, trying to just get the word out there again to remind people that Jennifer Soto should actually be locked up. She's certainly played a large role in what happened to Maddie. So I'm going to try and actually get onto some of the audio today that I didn't cover yesterday. But like I said, yesterday's live stream I thought was a really good one in terms of everyone just had some really good things to bring to the table. Welcome in, Teresa. Welcome in, Nonny. Good to see you all in here. I don't think I've got anything to throw in before we really launch in, although, no, I'll save those for later. Yeah, no, I don't think I've got anything hugely significant to throw in. So I think I might just jump into the audio straight away today. Yeah, oh, wow, Anki, you really need to look after yourself then, that's for sure. Chest colds can develop into worse, so certainly look after yourself, that's for sure. Sheila, welcome in. Good to see you here. Okay, Dan, let's get back to Daniel. He doubled back to talking about the children missing school again. Actually, before I get onto that, I put a video out last night which people may or may not have seen. I don't know if it's actually YouTube's actually notifying people when I put videos out. Just starting to address some of the blanket stuff, because obviously, as you know, there is now a new version that's come out from Malaya. So I had to dig into that. And even what Malaya told Belinda is different to what was being said on Shenanigans channel. So I'm working today on putting together a video that pulls together all the narratives about the blanket. The video that I put out last night was basically me pulling up Daniel's narrative, but also pointing out the thing with that one was him basically trying to gaslight me, and saying that, well, just because I spoke to the RCMP about his claim that there were 2 blankets doesn't mean that Alison in the RCMP actually communicated with Major Crimes Unit. And I'm like, she's the media liaison, that's her job. So anyway, there's a video out about that if you feel like checking it out later on. Welcome in, Gasper Girl and Deborah. It's August already. It really is. We're only a month away from Daniel finally, hopefully, having to actually go and enter a plea, and then hopefully seeing this other case progress through court. Welcome in, Hugging Demons. Sadly, I think that the delays with Daniel's case is going to delay Lily and Jack's case, which I wish it wouldn't. I want to see movement in this case. I would dearly, dearly love to see something happen in this case before the end of the year. But it's looking like we might not get that. I think I'm bracing myself for not getting any resolution again this year. But I really, really, really want to be wrong on that. I really want to be wrong. I forgot what I was going to say now. There's something else I was going to say in relation to that. Oh, no, it's not in relation to that. This week, so keep an eye out for a bit of a change of direction. I will still be covering Lily and Jack, obviously, but tomorrow, which in my brain is today, but tomorrow, Sarah Grace Patrick, her trial is starting with jury selection. So I believe there's going to be 2 days of jury selection, and then on the 5th, finally her trial starts. I did a little bit of coverage of her case when she was first arrested, and then I just put it off to the side for a while because there was a lot of stupidity going on around it. But I will definitely be coming back to covering that case. I am very open in my support of Kim and Kelly. Kim is the sister of, now I wish I had some, I don't think I've got images here. Just to quickly fill you in on this case that I'm talking about, Sarah Grace Patrick was, I think, 16 when her mother and stepfather were shot and killed in their beds. And she went on TikTok doing all these TikTok videos showing how sad she was and how much she missed her mother and how devastated she was. Really trying to get attention. And she actually contacted a a few content creators, like, please bring awareness to my mother's case, to my parents' case. And she got arrested and charged over their murder. So Kim is the brother. Kim is the sister of Jamie, who was the stepfather, and Kelly is Kim's best friend. So Kelly's been supporting her quite a lot, and they've both copped a lot of bullying over the last however long it's been since Sarah Grace was arrested. Anyway, I'll be putting a video out, just a recap of the Sarah Grace Patrick case for anyone who is interested in checking it out. I will definitely be covering the trial. If it was daylight savings, I would consider streaming it, but I'm not sure that I can achieve that. I think it'll just be a case of me checking it out and then going from there, possibly. Anyway, let's get back to Lily and Jack, and more specifically to Daniel. Well, that's the thing. It's, if he gets convicted, he will be locked up. But I don't want to have to wait that long. I want to see things happen now. I want to see all of them. Welcome in, Janice. I want to see Daniel, Jordan, and Chance all locked up. And then hopefully we might get some movement in the case. But it seems like somehow, you know, we have to wait. I'm usually pretty good with patience, but, you know, I think this case has really affected a lot of us deeply because there's so much to it. And I think too, because we've all become, we've all seen what Belinda and Chelsea have gone through over the last 15 months. And I, for one, want to see it moving on to the next phase. We can just hope. We can just keep our fingers crossed. And we can just hope. So, you know, what more can you do? But I will still be here for Lily and Jack. They're not going to shut me up. They can try. They're not going to shut me up. You know, I can live on 2-minute noodles if I have to, but I'm still going to be here for Lily and Jack. So big F you to the people who are trying to shut people up and stop them from talking about Lily and Jack. Okay, so let's get back to Daniel. Not that I want to. I'm like hovering over the thing that says add to stage, but let's just do it.
Yeah, like I don't know for 100% if she had the black eye, but it definitely.
Oh, I did run it back a little bit just because, well, because I like to, and also because the audio kind of runs on.
Definitely hit her in the face, and usually black eyes don't form right away, right? They usually take like a few days, and then they'll start to turn purple, and then they'll make their way to like a yellowish color, and then you know as bruising progresses, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they always,
because what bruising is the blood is trapped between your layers of skin, and the body needs to dissolve that blood that's trapped.
Just think how smart we've gotten since we've had Professor Dan on scene.
And that's why it changes color over time, and eventually the body has a way of dissipating the blood that's trapped between the skin.
But so did that have anything to do with the fact that they didn't go to school because
No.
of CPS before?
No, Malaya said they were sick. As I said, I wouldn't have kept them home from school. I mean, not
the Friday, but the Thursday.
No.
You said
no.
Thursday, But then you said that
They were sick. They were sick on Thursday, but I wouldn't have kept them home on Friday.
both, or just the one.
It was Lily. It was just Lily.
It was,
Yeah, me too. Him being the expert on bruises, it is sickening. That's for sure. So again, we're going back to it was just Lily who was sick, which seems to be the agreed thing, even though periodically him and Janie try to say it was him and Lily and Jack.
just
It was
Lily,
just Lily.
right?
Yeah.
That's how I took it. That it was just Lily.
But usually when they stayed home, they both stayed home together, like
Right.
most of the time.
Yeah, and it's not like I, wouldn't agree with that as a parent. Usually, it's like, if I don't send one out, just keep the other home as well and stuff.
Well,
I wouldn't keep both kids home just because one's sick. I look back to when I was a kid, and of course with like asthma and just all sorts of, health issues. If I got a cold, I got bronchitis. If I got ill, I got really ill. If my sister was kept home every time I got sick, she would have missed a hell of a lot of school. And she was like ducks of her grade pretty much every year at school. So I don't agree with it. If you've got one kid that's off sick, keep that kid home. But if the other kid's fine, send them to school. I mean, I guess maybe things have changed now since COVID. Yeah, I would believe that too. I'm willing to bet that they were sent to school when they had the sniffles or colds or something like that and kept home when there were bruises. Welcome in, Deafening Silence. Good to see you. Yeah, it's policy. Whether it's adequately enforced, but there is certainly are policies in place for, however many days. So you reach one level of days, then there has to be a follow-up, and then it escalates. Actually, that's not quite. that's my fault, and that's not actually accurate. When Daniel went on the DT show, and he was talking about how they'd missed school every week for the first 10 weeks of school or something. And my comment on that was that's actually a lot of school to miss, because if that happened every week, that could potentially be 40 days a year. People ran with that and decided that they'd missed 40 days a year, but it's actually not the case. We know that they missed a day a week for the first 11 weeks, but we don't know how many absences they had after that. Welcome in, Ernestine. Good to see you here. But either way, they clearly missed a lot of school. When they were in school, they clearly weren't they didn't have the capacity for learning that they should have had because of what was going on at home for them, because probably not being given the right meals, so many things. Oh yes, a lot of things get misinterpreted and repeated, and it becomes gospel. There's a lot of things with the Kylie Rodney case where trying to actually find the truth in a lot of that, what was said there, is the same thing, because things were said and then pushed. And people lost track of what was what. Oh, yeah. I did look all this up and I've got a document saved, but I think 20 days is when serious action starts to kick in. So had they missed 40 days or 41 days, there would have been a lot of things happening, I think. Yes, but that could just be someone speculating that it equaled approximately 6 weeks, because 6 weeks, that would be like, 30 days of school. So it's still, again, someone making approximations, I think. But that's a good question. I wonder how many days both of them missed because of injuries and things. I also think, I wonder how many days were missed because Daniel and Malaya were maybe too tweaked out to actually get the kids on the bus. Because in a household like that, quite often absences come down to parents just not being capable of getting their kids ready and getting them on the bus. Yeah, look, in terms of attendance, that's not for us to know, but I think we can guess that there probably was quite a lot. I mean, to miss 1 day a week for the first 11 weeks of school, when kids start school for the year, that's the crucial part anyway. And it may not sound significant, but even 10 days is a lot over a year for little kids that age. Yeah, exactly. This all comes under privacy. A lot of the CPS stuff is not going to be released. But I do hope that we do get some answers in terms of why there was a visit in December, and then in May, like 5 or 6 months on, depending on when the December visit was, in May these children go missing, and we haven't heard that there was any additional visits. So how did they get to this point? Oh yeah. That's the thing. I don't believe it was autism either. I think it was neglect. I also think it was complex trauma, because for children in a household where there is DV going on, where there is rug use, all that sort of stuff that shouldn't be happening in a home with young children, that can lead to CPTSD, because they're living that on a daily basis, especially if there is DV, because they become so hypervigilant because they never know when the next yelling match is going to happen or when the next bit of violence is going to happen. So they just become hypervigilant the whole time. And when a child goes to school and they're hypervigilant, they can't focus on learning because their brain is too busy focusing on their surroundings. Oh, yeah. For sure. Not just ASD, but ADHD. The moment you throw any sort of neurodiversity in, then you do have a higher chance of family violence. There's been so many studies that have looked at that. Jack would have been almost there. Lily would have been old enough to show. But again, there's a huge overlap between PTSD, between CPTSD, and between ASD and ADHD. So it makes it hard, and I think there needs to be a change in how diagnoses are made. And when children are diagnosed or looked at for autism or ADHD, then there also should be a closer look at their home life to just rule out trauma. Because think about how many of these children we hear about that have gone missing, that things have happened to, and the parents are like, yeah, you know, they're possibly ASD or ADHD. And I think if only, like same with Maddie, maybe Maddie had ADHD, but what she was showing at school was complex trauma. And the thing is, if there was some sort of, if they redo the assessment in the actual DSM-5, that also allows for some way of, without it adding to the trauma, but some way of adding in questions or assessments for trauma issues. Because how many children are out there who've been diagnosed with ADHD or ASD who are actually going through what these children have gone through, and it's been missed because it's just been diagnosed as neurodivergent? How many children could possibly be saved if the assessment for neurodivergence was updated in a way that would allow specialists to see if there is a possibility of trauma, a possibility of abuse or neglect? Obviously, you're not going to ask a kid outright any of those things. But, the assessments for neurodiversity are written by psychiatrists. So, they have the professional tools to recreate these assessments in a way that would actually look at all angles. Welcome in, Charlotte. Good to see you here. We don't know who the victim of the charges were with Daniel. We can speculate, but that's as far as we can go because of the court order, which actually prevents us from identifying. Even though Daniel himself on Charmaine's channel actually identified the victim, and to me it sounded like he intentionally did it. It sounded like he was basically doing a big up yours to the victim because of the way he spoke around it before he made his comment that made it pretty clear who the victim was. But yeah, we all know what the story is there, but we just can't name up anyone. Okay, bit more of this.
The restrictions on kids going to school when they're sick are a lot different after COVID, right?
Yeah.
And
It blows my mind. He was so cocky about it. He's like, it's part of my undertaking, or whatever it's called. Because that's not a term that I'm familiar with. It's not something that I've heard anywhere else. But basically, the agreement that he had to sign when he was charged basically meant that he was not meant to identify the victim or go near the victim. And yet he blurted it out on Charmaine's channel. And it seems like they missed it. They didn't hear it. Yeah. It tells a lot when you see in the documents that the teacher never met Malaya. Because especially, I mean, we're talking about kids that are in those early years. You would certainly expect the mother to attend the school at some point in time. They definitely would have had to have been on the list for a school psych assessment. Possibly they may have already had, some sort of assessment within the school. And then it was a case of, talking to Malaya and Daniel and having it taken further. Oh, hell yeah. And that's the problem with the challenge with updating the assessment, because it's got to be done so carefully, so safely. And I'm sort of thinking more along the lines of, you don't really, I mean, if a child discloses, then yeah, you do have to have something in place straight away. But more in terms of the assessment, not necessarily, trying to get the child to disclose, but there are things that show that there are signs that show that a child is living with trauma. And the child doesn't have to actually verbalize anything, not explicitly. So that's the sort of thing that I'm thinking of, the more subtle assessment that's still going to be quite clear, if that kind of makes sense. I suspect that the reason that she didn't go to the school was because he wouldn't let her go there. I think he had a lot of control over where she went. And I think he really wouldn't have wanted her to have talked to the teachers in any way. Welcome in, Dawn. Good to see you here. So I think you're spot on about that. Yeah, when you're talking a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, I know they live a distance away, but most schools these days do a meet the teacher. And like you said, open houses, a week when parents can go in and see what their children have done, and school performances. Surely their school would do like end of year Christmas performance. Oh, that's not end of year in Canada, is it? But like do their Christmas performances and things like that. And Malaya never went to any of those. Yeah, I can see that happening quite often in these sort of situations. Oh, wow. Wow. Boy was sick at school and the mother said, no, I'm playing bingo. Wow. You get that, though. You really do. Unreal. I love the idea of a pay what you can system with free lunch for children, because so many children go to school with inadequate lunches or no lunches. The snacks and the fruit, do they do like a morning fruit break or something? Because certainly, that little bit of fruit, that little bit of natural sugar of a morning is often needed for kids who go to school without breakfast. Wow. Unreal. I'm sorry that you went through that, Artemisa. That's horrible. People can be shocking, can't they? Just, it's a wonder some children turn out to be, almost normal, mostly normal, when you think about some of the crap that they go through.
They want you to keep your kids home if they're sick. If they have a fever, keep them home for a longer amount of time. Don't just send them right back to school.
Now,
that's logical, obviously. And if I believed that that's the reason Lily and Jack had all those absences, I'd be like, well and good. Especially, post-COVID. Because the last thing you want is COVID going through an entire school population. And, the winter months, you just get, anytime you get the flu going through, you do get half the school population out. But I just don't think that's the case of what we're looking at here. I would imagine that very few of the absences come down to health, unless it was just because of really, really low immunity because of their living conditions. But I'm willing to bet that there were plenty of times when they were kept home because of injuries, or they were kept home because Malaya and Daniel couldn't get themselves out of bed to get the kids ready for school. They're the magical things that, painful to watch so often, especially with little kids. But it's so magical for the kids and their families. Like, chance to be. Can you imagine how much Lily would have loved to have gotten on stage and performed for her family in like a Christmas concert? Lily was the sort of girl who would have shined at something like that and would have revelled in the chance to get the attention on stage and have Malaya and Cindy there watching and clapping her on. And it's a sad thought, it really is.
only because you did talk about this, but we never talked about it. Okay, so you said something just to ask you, because I was asking you about the relation. First of all, how did you and Malaya meet? Can I ask you?
We met on Facebook dating.
Oh, right. Okay, that was it. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was gonna say. Okay, and then you guys had.
Okay, take care. Deafening silence. Welcome in, Terry Fur. This still blows my mind that they met on Facebook dating and were living together within 2 weeks. Like, seriously.
Basically, what, been together a couple weeks, and then you guys were all living at Patty's?
Yeah,
correct?
I was living at my friend's in Westfall, and she asked me, she said, like, instead of you traveling from Westfall to Truro every day to come see me, I'm gonna ask Patty if you can just move in here. And I said, like, yeah, me and Malaya really liked each other. At the start of every relationship, right? It's perfect until it's not.
That's a good question. I've never looked to see if there's a site called Facebook dating. Wow, Facebook does have a dating section. Unreal. Exactly. Now, the way he's telling it, I can guarantee you this is not how it happened. So his version is like, Malaya said, well, instead of traveling over here, because you're traveling like 45 minutes almost every day to see me, why not just move in here? That's not how it happened. We know what Daniel's like. We know the way he manipulates. There was definitely emotional manipulation in this. He's saying that, he'd have to get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning to drive to work. Reading between the lines, first of all, I'm guessing that there was a lot of whining from Daniel. Also, I'm guessing that the times when Malaya really, really wanted him to be there were the times when he was like, I can't, I've got to stay home because I've got work in the morning. And I know it was only a 2-week period of time, but trust me, people like him work so quickly. He would have made sure that the entire household was woken up when he got up at 4:30 in the morning. So he basically would have worked his ass off in every way that he could to make sure that she invited him to move in. He probably was. It could have been any one of his friends. But you can bet he must have been working. He did say that, apparently he was working full-time for a while there. So I'm thinking probably this was around the time that he was working full-time. I think he probably spent a lot of time with Malaya whinging about the having to get up early, about how tired he was and stuff like that. Welcome in, Angelina. It sounds from what we've heard that he was actually couch surfing all over the place. I suspect that Janie wouldn't have had him in there. I suspect the only reason that she allowed him and Malaya to move in was because of baby M, because Malaya was pregnant with her grandchild and Daniel was selling it as they had nowhere to go, because I bet he didn't tell Janie that it was only him that wasn't welcome at Paddy's, because it would have been quite easy for him to have moved out of Paddy's. But I could bet you any money that, perfect situation for him. like he has a fallout with Patty. She doesn't want him there anymore. So he finds a way to manipulate things to isolate Malaya from her entire family. So I really think it was him manipulating all around. Yeah, autocorrect is... I think autocorrect is out of control at the moment. I've noticed lately I'm nearly at the point of turning it off, because I will type something and it will completely change what I'm typing. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? Just let me type what I'm trying to say. Thank you for coming in, Nonny. Good to have you in here. Oh, even when it's turned off, it does its own thing. It's unreal. It's just gone to extremes. And the other side of it is, it does my head in when you're typing something and you get to a word that you're not sure of the spelling on, and it won't autocorrect the word for you. So then you've got to go and actually look up the word anyway. Good question. I think Patty probably saw through him. But we never got that backstory. All we know was that him and Patty basically were not getting along. So, yeah, I think you're right, Karen. Baby M was the diamond. So for Janie, that was enough. And I mean, when you listen to the way Daniel talks about baby M being his child, it wasn't going to be acceptable for him to be living separate from Malaya, because she was just basically the incubator as far as he was concerned, in my opinion. I might be wrong. But the way he talks about baby M as his child, and then occasionally remembers to say our child or our daughter, to me, I think that shows that there's no way he was going to move out of Paddy's without Malaya. I do think I am probably about 80, 90% confident that he would have threatened her. He would have weaponized baby M. I think one of the ways that he was keeping her was telling her, if you leave, I'm keeping the baby. Because so often he talks about baby M as being his, not theirs. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least if that's one thing that he was holding over her. And you see it so often in relationships. And the thing is, when you're in those sort of coercive relationships, if you're the one at the center of it, you can't always apply logic. I had a friend who was wanting to get out of her marriage. She was the one working while her husband was doing the stay-at-home Mr. Mum thing. And he told her that if they separated, he was going to take the children. And he said he was going to move to another state and she'd never get to see her children again. And even with me and her family telling her, you know that legally he can't do that. Legally, you're the one who's working. Legally, you've got rights, and he can't just take the children to another state. And in court, you would look so much better than him. Trying to convince someone when they're in that situation is hard, because the other person is in their ear saying this is how it's going to be. Yeah. He said baby M and I will visit her in prison. He made it pretty clear. Sadly, that happens so often, way too often. Because that is one of the biggest ways for men to control a woman, is that threat of taking their children away from them and them never seeing their children again. And that's the thing. She did get Jack and Lilly by default because Cody he wasn't in a place to fight it. And I can't help wondering, well, I actually feel confident that she pushed him to that point as well. Because we've heard that there were quite a lot of accusations in the court documents. And maybe for Cody, it was just too hard to fight those accusations. We don't know what their relationship was like in terms of any sort of manipulation from her, or, it's quite possible that before she left, she'd already hammered him down, because you so often see that when a parent chooses not to fight for custody of their children in any way, 95%, might perhaps even more than that, a large percentage of the time, it's because the parent that's basically challenging them in court has put them in a position where they just feel that they just can't fight it. Put them in a position where they feel like a lesser individual, and like they're not worthy of fighting it. Now, I don't know the situation between Malaya and Cody, but when I see Belinda and Chelsea, I think Cody's he can't be a bad person being in that family. I think it's not possible for him to not care deeply about his children. So to me, that tells me that he was backed into a corner, and that whatever the situation was, that he just didn't feel that he had it in him to fight it, and that perhaps Malaya made him feel that he wasn't good enough to fight it. This is speculation, but this is speculation based on what we know of Malaya and what we know about Cody's family. And I think I cannot see Cody as being a bad person. It's genetically not possible, in my opinion. So I think that there was probably a lot of things that stem back to the way Malaya made him feel. I know a lot of people love to jump on Cody and make him out to be the worst dad on the planet. And, you know, he probably, I can't imagine how he must feel in this current situation. But I also think that I think that we can't throw this negativity on Cody without understanding what was going on in his world. I would say that definitely she had that against him. It sounds like when Jack was born, things started going sideways. And Malaya would have really, really weaponized that. Now, we can't say that Malaya didn't have a role in that happening in the first place. So to me, I will not vilify Cody in any way, because I don't know his situation. And I think if she made him feel so little that he felt that he couldn't fight it, yeah, anyway. Exactly. It's, yeah, I shouldn't go down this track, but all I'm saying is that I have a lot of compassion for Cody, and I don't know what the situation was between Cody and Malaya. I don't know what was in the court papers that made him feel that he couldn't fight it. I don't know what Cody himself was going through at the time. So I'm not going to judge him without knowing these things. Maybe, maybe it's all on Cody, but it's not. I mean, it's not even, in my opinion, it's not even really our business. Yeah, Cody's choices, even Belinda has said she disagrees with his choices. But I think sometimes we judge people too harshly when there's mental health issues involved. Well, I think he was granted supervised access. But I think he must have just been in that place where even that just didn't seem like enough to fight for. I don't know. I would imagine, given everything that's gone on in this case, that he'd be too scared to talk to anyone now. Because the amount of character assassination that's gone on, I think it was a wise choice from the very beginning for Cody to stay silent and for Belinda to protect him. Because otherwise, eventually, the trolls would have cycled through everyone else and be attacking Cody. So I don't think Cody's ever going to speak to anyone because he must be aware. I never talked to Belinda or Chelsea about Cody. It's not my business. But I figure that he must be aware of what's going on. If I was in his position, I certainly wouldn't want to talk to anybody. I'd be too scared of someone leaking audio or leaking text or, turning it into the next clickbait, basically. And we've seen even some of the content creators that appear so very trustworthy and reliable share things with other content creators who then put them out there for the public anyway. So to me, the only way for Cody to protect himself and protect his mental health is if he just doesn't talk to anyone. Oh hell yeah. Daniel hates Cody. Daniel really hates Cody. Can you imagine? He's already talking about weaponizing anything Malaya says. So if Cody even said one word, you could guarantee that Daniel would go after him. Anyway, totally off topic. The squirrels are free once again. So let's keep going.
That's how all relationships work. But yeah, she asked me, do you want to move in instead of traveling over here? Like you're traveling like 45 minutes almost every day to come over and see me, right? And like sometimes I would go over there, and after work, and I would stay the night. Then I would have to get up at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning and drive all the way to work.
Yep, and he bitched and moaned and carried on about that. I can guarantee. That's what I was saying before. You can guarantee that when he was getting up at 4:30 in the morning, he was making sure that he woke everybody else up at the same time. Oh, and welcome in, Bonza, too. Oh, yeah. That wouldn't surprise me either. Certainly the way Daniel manipulates, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. Oh, I know. Like, I'm sorry. Do you know how many people in Australia actually travel that distance to work every day? I mean, you get people in Sydney who would consider that to be a short trip. Like, honestly. He could have done. And I wouldn't be surprised too if that was part of the manipulation, saying to Malaya, maybe I should quit my job and try and get one that's closer because it's really hard to be able to travel back and forth and all this BS stuff. 45 minutes is not a long commute in most places, is it? I mean, here in Bendigo, everything's only 5 minutes away. But most places, 45 minutes is a short commute for some places. I used to travel, just trying to think. I used to travel about an hour and a half to one location that I worked. And that's one way. You look at anyone who, unless you happen to live in a city area and work in a city area, most people do travel a lot. 45 minutes really is nothing. It's mind-blowing that he thinks that's like huge.
And so she said, yeah, you can, like, Patty's like, yeah, go ahead. I like Daniel. He can move in.
Oh, question 2. So from Bible Hill to the mill, or hang on. Is he saying he was traveling from work, or is he saying that he was traveling from wherever he was staying? Because it seems to me that there's like a freeway that goes right through. So it's not like he would have been traveling on a freeway, wouldn't he? Like a lot of it. It's not like he would have been traveling like back roads or windy roads where it's more tiring because you've got to focus more. I'm just guessing at that from what I've seen on the maps, but it doesn't look like he'd be dealing with heavy city traffic or anything like that either.
I have nothing bad to say about Patty. Patty is one of the sweetest old ladies I have ever met.
Yeah, I think she put you sitting in the vehicle. I know she got some, I think that she said some things that weren't accurate necessarily in the documents.
Okay, sorry. Sunny has moved on there. I didn't realize before I paused. It sounds like a lot of people do really love Patty. She sounds like a lovely person. But let's not forget here too that Daniel and Malaya were taking advantage of Patty big time in terms of her finances. So, yeah, how crazy is that? Nothing bad to say about her, but they'll spread rumours about her being an alcoholic and having dementia. I think Hayley herself has admitted that Patty does have issues with alcohol. We've never heard anything from Hayley that would suggest that she has dementia, though. But, you know, being an alcoholic doesn't necessarily change who someone is. Some people can be horrible when they're alcoholics. Other people seem to take it in their stride. Yeah. Weekend boyfriends are definitely the best. Just have the rest of your week to yourself and just keep them out of your face the rest of the week. I agree. Yep, I think that's exactly what happened. Weaseled his way into Patty, put on the charm, because we've seen Daniel can really be quite a charmer when he tries. So I think he's put on the charm. Then things hit a point where Patty saw through that. She saw whatever was going on. He was probably doing rugs and she caught him, maybe. I don't know. Because according to Malaya, she only discovered when she was about to be induced with baby M that he was doing rugs, which I find that not so believable, but anyway. definitely. I think yeah. I think she probably saw one or both, definitely. I agree with you. And certainly I could imagine that if she was aware of rugs in the house, that she would have been like, nah, not in my house. Yeah, I think she would have drawn the line at rugs as well. That's for sure. It's also quite likely that he was not doing anything worthwhile around the house. Like, it's you see in the documents where Malaya's like, Daniel was supposed to do this, but I didn't see any sign of him doing it. Janie, I was waiting for Daniel to find his tools so he could come and help me fix the fence. But then we're told that his tools were stored in the little porch area at the front of the house. So it shouldn't have been something that she needed to wait for. Yeah, that too. You can see these sort of abuses. You can see the coercive control so quickly that Patty maybe thought that by throwing him out that she was going to break the hold that he had on Malaya. I mean, I can remember my best friend, this guy that she dated and she got engaged to, and I was horrified. When I didn't get to meet him when they were first dating, but when she got engaged, we did the whole thing of, bring him round for dinner so we can meet him. And he spent the entire evening undermining her and putting her down. And straight away, I was like, oh my gosh, and she wants to marry this guy. And that was in an evening. So you could imagine how much Patty probably saw in terms of the way that Daniel was treating Malaya. I know. Couldn't put up posters because he couldn't find his stapler. Honestly, if I was in a relationship with someone who had kids and their kids went missing and I couldn't find my stapler, I'd be straight to the hardware store and I'd be buying one of those big mothers that staples into everything. Or some tacks or something. And going, now I can do it. Like, that's the most pathetic excuse on the planet. Seriously. And letterboxes too. Good point, Bonza. Put the flyers in letterboxes. Or go around businesses and ask them. You're so good with the emotional manipulation, Daniel. You could have been going into all these businesses and convincing them to put Lily and Jack's posters up just using your own manipulative skills. But he didn't have a stapler. Yep. It tells you a lot, doesn't it? Really does.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's one thing I'll say, and I'm sorry, but I feel like that Patty was like a bank machine, and she was always trying to help out Malaya, in a lot of ways and stuff like that. I see Patty as just a very generous, kind grandmother who always, no matter what, just very lovable, kind.
Yeah, Patty.
Now, someone made a comment the other day. You nailed it, Deborah. Narcissistic misogynists. seems like there's a few of them around at the moment, doesn't it? But it's certainly that's exactly the description I would have used. Yeah, very quick to do that. It's a shame the way they all. Patty seems like a very kind person. Yeah, under windscreen wipers, exactly, with the flyers and stuff. Good point. Now, someone made a point the other day. Now, I'm not sure if this is verified, but someone said that they believed that Malaya's family payments were actually going to Patty, and that a lot of the money that Patty was spending was actually Malaya's family payments in terms of keeping that money safe so that it was being used for the right reasons, as opposed to Daniel having immediate access to it. And that actually makes a lot of sense. Now, I don't know if that's all the money that's been spoken about, but certainly it seems like Patty has been very protective of Hayden and Malaya. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was some sort of agreement like that going on. Well, Patty was the one that came out and spoke about Malaya telling her that he'd held her down and taken her phone. Sounds like Patty is the person that Malaya confided in. So it's definitely in his interest to discredit her. And certainly, if they're getting money as well. Yeah. And welcoming Carla. It does make sense. And I could imagine him not doing his taxes because there's no financial benefit for him. There's no incentive to do it because he wasn't getting access to that money. Because you can bet if that money was more freely available, that he'd be jumping in. Oh, Connie did too. Yeah, thank you. Connie Brooks also said the same story to the Globe and Mail. So Connie is Malaya's grandmother. Connie is Henry's mother. So Patty and Connie both knew about him holding her down. And the thing is, when you have these sort of relationships, if a woman who is being abused discloses information like that, you can guarantee that that's serious minimizing. That's nothing at all in comparison to whatever it was she was going through. Oh, okay. If he doesn't do his taxes, he gets no employment insurance, taxes, or financial benefits in Nova Scotia. And welcome in too. So employment insurance, as in if he injures himself at work, isn't that something that the employer has to automatically cover? He has to prove his income. Okay. Yeah, see, in Australia we have we only have workers' compensation, employment insurance. I guess. Oh, okay. So if you are casual, you pay into it, and if you're laid off, you get 55% of your income. Oh, that's interesting. Here in Australia, there's laws in terms of like employment and stuff. So if you are employed on a casual basis, then there's no obligation from your employer to give you regular shifts or anything. They can just dwindle your shifts to the point where you just don't get shifts anymore. Not casual, part-time. Part-time. If you're a part-time, now I'm getting the terminology. If you're someone who is there and you just get given shifts through the week, then there's no obligation anywhere in terms of if you get laid off, you kind of don't really get laid off. You just, your shifts just dry up. If you are a casual worker, then you have to get what is called a redundancy payment. So if you are put off work, your employer pays you a redundancy payment, which is sort of like what you're talking about there. But you don't have to pay into anything while you're working for that to exist. That's just a requirement for the employer to pay. So they have to pay so much percentage of whatever you've worked, whatever you were earning. But there's also a lot of things in place here in terms of unfair dismissals and stuff like that. So, yeah, we don't have anything like that here where you have to pay into it yourself. Even with super, you don't have to contribute to your own super fund. Your employer contributes to that. You can contribute extra from your income, and that's deducted. That's a tax deduction. But you don't even have the cost of putting in money for your own super. That's also something that comes out of your employer's pocket. So that's interesting. It's very interesting.
Patty is, I should say. Like, Patty is an amazing person. I used to sit down with Patty so many times. I smoke nicotine vapes, right? So I would go outside when she would have a cigarette, and she would tell me like all her old stories from, her late husband to, her like family that lives in Ontario, and she told me so many other stories about being at the campgrounds and growing up, and her other son, and like she told me there's a lot of stories. And like, I always liked Patty because she was very open, and she's a very sweet person, and I have nothing bad to say.
Oh wow, doing 5 years of worth of taxes to catch up, that could not be fun. You don't pay it per se, it's part of the deductions from your pay, like taxes. Yeah, see, here in Australia, the only deductions that are taken out is your tax. So when your employer does your wages, they take out your tax, but they also have to calculate before tax is taken out the amount of money that they have to pay into your super fund. And that's not deducted from what you earn. That's completely separate. So, you have your, whatever you earn in the fortnight, you get your taxes deducted from that. But your deductions in terms of super, money for super, in terms of if you're a casual worker and you're going to get a payout at the end of the year, there's no deductions from your pay. It doesn't affect your pay at all. So you could be earning the same income as someone who's in a permanent role, and if, like, at the end of the year your job ends, you get paid leave loading, and none of that comes out of your own wages. That comes directly from the employer, which, it's a good system, because I'd imagine that there must be a lot of deductions then if you've got, like, all these things actually being deducted from your own pay. Anyway, Daniel on Paddy, he definitely is quite respectful towards her there. I think it's probably, there is some sort of I think he did. Thanks for coming in, Bonza. He's too busy finding himself to look for a stapler. He does sound like he genuinely likes Paddy. But I also think that Paddy is still his foot in the door with Malaya. Because remember, after the polygraph exam, he said he went to Paddy's place and told her he passed because he knew she would pass that on to Malaya. So I think there's also that the narcissistic side of things where she's useful for him, even though he's no longer able to benefit financially. She's still the best link that he has with Malaya. So, but again, the other side of that is too, you'll notice Daniel has learned not to badmouth people that are respected by others, because he's done this with Belinda as well. We know that he's jealous of the fact that Belinda's come out and spoken about the children and that people see that she's genuine about it. So if he were to say bad stuff about Paddy, that's going to come down on him. It's going to be his reputation. It's going to be him that's going to be seen as the asshole. So I can see why he's got to say this. And you cannot possibly tell me with Daniel that him being thrown out of Paddy's home, him being like, you can't live here anymore, you can't possibly tell me that there isn't resentment over that. We don't even have paper checks here in Australia anymore. Everything's just straight into bank accounts. Yeah, the question is, how much is manipulation and how much is recognition of... So he sounds genuine when he's talking about the sitting outside and her telling him stories. So I think that's like he was probably found those stories fascinating. But I do think there's no way, with her having thrown him out of the house, that there could not be resentment from Daniel. So yeah, anyway, I'll move on from that.
Doesn't matter to me if someone drinks or someone does drugs or someone
Irony. It doesn't matter to me if someone drinks or does drugs or smokes cigarettes. Of course it doesn't, Daniel, because you do that yourself.
smokes
I was gonna
cigarettes
say,
or like
yeah.
it's everybody's trying to get through life.
With crutches.
Yeah, no, but I mean, everybody, we're all living for the first time, right?
Yeah.
None of us have ever done this before. And so we're all trying to do life for the very first time.
What a crock of... Sorry, I'm just... He's not talking about people doing cigarettes and rugs and stuff now. Welcome in, Ms. V. I totally agree with this. Honestly, all he's doing here now is basically... He's trying to defend himself over the living situation now. This is not about the cigarettes and stuff anymore. This is about... We're all living things for the first time. None of us have ever done this before. It's not our fault. Yeah, it's like we're all in the big game of life. Yeah, these children are from Nova Scotia, and welcome in, CMAC. This is Lily and Jack Sullivan, who've been missing since May 2nd of last year. We're listening to the former boyfriend of their mother, who's certainly appears to be the person responsible. Yep, life doesn't come with an owner's manual, that's for sure. And sure, we all do our best and we all make mistakes, but this is him basically. This is all about Daniel. This is not about him trying to be like, oh, I don't feel bad for anyone because, people make mistakes. This is Daniel standing up for Daniel. Yeah, we're all praying that there will be justice for these babies, and we're all praying that it's going to happen really, really soon. Although it looks like it could be a wait.
And every move you make and everything you do, it's your choice, right? And I can't choose what someone does and
not exactly a time when I should be laughing. But who sang that song? Like, every move you make, I'll be watching you. Wasn't it the Police? Because hearing that line come out of Daniel's mouth, every move you make, it was the Police. my brain just straight out went to, I'll be watching you. I'm like, yep, we know that, Daniel. Sorry, I just had to point it out because every time I hear him say it, it just hits me in the face. Yes, we know you are still watching Malaya.
Or choose what they do over there, or choose, to whatever, right? And so everybody makes their own choices, and that's the best part about life, because
It's Daniel's theme song, honestly. Yeah. This is his theme song. I can't play it because of copyright. You saw them, Deborah? Oh my gosh. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. That would be phenomenal. Yep. We all make mistakes, but we need to be accountable for our choices. 100%. 100%. That's spot on. I'm going to have that song stuck in my head all day now. But it is his theme song, for sure.
everybody's unique, and I have nothing against anybody who does drugs or drinks alcohol. That's totally on them.
Isn't that so nice of him? He's got nothing against people who does drugs or drinks alcohol, because it's totally on them. Yeah, he is unique. He's so unique. Yep. It is. It's all cliches. He pulls out the cliches non-stop. One cliche after the next. It's like when he gets bored with his online thesaurus, he goes searching for new cliches to use. He's unique.
If it's destroying their health, that's on them. And
Yeah.
as long as it's not harming others.
So what?
You can tell Sonny's brain there, and I'll run it back a bit. You can tell Sonny's brain there is just going, did he really just say that? And I haven't put the banner up either. I should have done that. Okay, so obviously need to give Sonny credit for this. I keep talking about him, but I forget to put the banner up. Yeah, he is trying to make himself sound so chill. So very chill. And yeah, sorry, I missed that, Karen. Again, Daniel with his, this is basically his way of saying, you've got to accept this. You've got to believe me, as in, you can't argue this. This is a fact. This is my thing that I'm pushing on you, and you're not allowed to argue against it. Yeah. He's definitely still using. Well, have you ever heard him say, I've been so many days sober? And the fact that he cannot acknowledge, you're so right, the fact that he doesn't think that it harms others. It really does. There's a lot of people that can tell you a lot of stories about the sort of harm on so many levels that can happen when someone close to you is addicted. That's what I believe, 100%. He's got no idea about what happened Wednesday, Thursday. Sounds like he was just completely tweaking out on Friday because Haley said he was running around like the Energizer Bunny. I do believe that whatever happened to Lily and Jack happened because he was off the show. I'm very much leaning towards it being related to his meth use. Which is, it's a sobering thought, but it really grates me to hear him claim that it doesn't do any harm. Yeah. He is. It's look over there, don't look at me. Focus on them. Exactly. The only reason he went to Paddy's after the polygraph was to make sure that it got back to Malaya. Yeah, it's really not cool when your parent is slumped in a chair drunk or is losing the cool with the kids. You know, when a person comes home drunk and one of the kids just happens to be awake or something and they decide to take it out on them because the kid's awake. You know, these things happen. We've got a woman here in Victoria, Samantha Murphy, 52-year-old woman who went missing about close to 18 months ago now, probably maybe 15 months ago. She went out jogging. She went missing. They haven't found her yet. But we do know that Patrick Stevenson, the 22-year-old who is charged with her murder, we know that he was tweaking at the time. He was off the show on drugs. And we know that, well, according to the prosecutors, he took Samantha Murphy's life. So I'm pretty certain that her family wouldn't say that it's harmless. Yeah, Deb, I'm sorry to hear that. You see this so often in families where someone comes home drunk, angry, and the kids just happen to get in the wrong place at the wrong time. Just, you know, forgetting to pretend they're asleep or something like that. You're probably right. Malaya said, you know, they were excited. They wouldn't settle. So it is possible. It is definitely a possibility. Just looking at people's. Oh, Ariel, sorry, you went through that too. Yeah. It's never a good experience to go through, that's for sure.
What propelled you and Malaya to move into the trailer?
Yeah, I can actually tell you that. Sometimes when Patty would drink, she would, you know, have firm words with Malaya. She was trying to keep Malaya on the right track in life, right? So Malaya wouldn't, because when you reach a certain age, you can see when people are making mistakes in their life or they want to help them with their life. But some people just don't know how to express the goodwill you're trying to give them, right?
Oh, I can imagine the things you've seen, that's for sure. The children just happening to be there when there's conflict happening. It's happens way too often. And sometimes it's fatal. Thank you for putting in 25 years in a job like that, because a lot of people don't last that long. And there certainly need to be people who are willing to make that dedication. He may have told her to shut her kids up, and she did. And she said, "Bad mum," and she said, "You made me do it." And he said, "I'll take care of it." Yeah, we never know. Well, hopefully we'll find out eventually what happened. I agree. I really do feel that there was the rug abuse was part of it. I do feel that the issues between him and Malaya were part of it. The stress from financial issues. I think there were a lot of things that played into it, and I think sorry. One of my local birds just flew and just kind of almost hit the window. Squirrels. Note how when he's talking about, he's been asked, what happened? Why did you guys move out of Paddy's? He deflects. He doesn't talk about him. He spoke about Paddy and Malaya. And yet we know that in the documents it says Paddy actually said that Daniel was basically asked to leave. He was asked to leave. We also know that Malaya was told by Paddy, Malaya could have had that house. Malaya could have had a nice house in Bible Hill for her and her children. The proviso was that she go back to school or she get a job. So Daniel steps in and says, "Come and live with me, you won't have to get a job." Paddy clearly could see the way things were going. Hi, Shirkers, good to see you in here. Paddy could clearly see the way things were going in this relationship. And she was trying to step in. But Daniel's making it look like it was all about a clash between Paddy and Malaya. Nothing to do with Daniel, because he was just there on the outside. He got along with Paddy because he sat outside and shared. He vaped while she smoked. It's all about Paddy and Malaya. Oh yeah, and we don't know. We don't know if Malaya was suffering with postpartum. It sounds like she struggled a bit with mental health over even from when she was a teenager. But certainly, Yeah, definitely self-sabotage. It's Daniel's version of this is very different from the versions we've heard. We've heard that we know that Malaya got violent with Cody when she was drinking. Now, for all we know, how do we know that she wasn't drinking the night that something happened to the children? How do we know that she wasn't on meds and drinking and something happened? These are good points.
And Patty would always just try to steer Malaya in the best direction, because she's like almost 70,
Yeah.
or she is 70 now. And she has a lot of life experience, and she wanted to give that life experience to Malaya. But some people are stubborn, and they don't want to listen or take others' opinions into consideration, right? And it's your choice to do that. You get to choose. You're the CEO of your life, right?
Oh my gosh, sorry. That's definitely counselor speak, isn't it? You're the CEO of your life. Good one, Daniel. Oh, I can guarantee he did. If you look in the documents, there's several references where they're basically saying the children didn't respond to Malaya. The children didn't behave for Malaya. They only behaved for Daniel. Malaya's like he has a voice that they would listen to. So I could guarantee that from the day that they moved into that property on Gairloch Road, that he was undermining her as a parent to the point where Lily and Jack did have their relationship with Malaya was damaged in many ways. Yes, that comment by him, they know her as the woman who cooks for them. Funny, Daniel, because when you were saying that in the context of you did everything for these children. You were the one that got them ready for school. But now your biggest excuse for not being responsible for their disappearance is that it was basically Malaya's job to get them ready for school, and you would lay in bed with the baby, and that was your role. But he seems to forget that. Oh, yeah. Honestly, he could write his own motivational book, although it would be basically taking from everyone else. But the crap that he comes out with, just, you never know what's coming next with Daniel.
And so, like, she didn't like when Patty would sometimes drink and then, had words with Malaya, and she wanted to escape. She wanted to escape from that. But what the big driver was why Malaya wanted to move, she wanted to get away from Cindy.
Couldn't help himself, could he? He is. Not only is he like AI in the way that he regurgitates stuff, but he's also like AI in that he gets it out of context. He gets it wrong in terms of what it means. He just gets it wrong. Yeah, I think he definitely doesn't come up with this stuff himself. Some of it's probably from this mandated counselling that he had to do for CPS. And it does seem that there are a few fangirls out there. We saw that Christine Inrig, who was apparently quite smitten with Daniel. And someone said that she was actually there with him when she went there for the search or something like that. Now, that's only rumour. I don't know if there's any truth in that, but he can come across as Mr. Suave. So I could see. And I wouldn't be surprised if down the track he has fangirls who write to him when he's in prison. But straight back to Cindy. He doesn't want to crap on Paddy too much. He knows that's a fight that he can't win. But any excuse to come back on Cindy, and he takes it. I know. It's a disturbing thought, isn't it? Like, seriously disturbing. Oh, dear. Christine Inrig came out and denied it. Look, there's been a lot of people who've been bending over backwards to throw shade on Christine Inrig. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it is just all more BS aimed at her. Just looking at, yep. Every time he hears a bit of pseudo-psychobabble, he keeps it in his head. He stores it in his brain that has room for all the $5 words. Puts it all in there for when he needs to use it. Pulls it out when he thinks it might actually fit, but he doesn't really know what he's talking about. Oh, yuck. I do remember early on in the case when people were falling over backwards and fawning over Dan. Look at this stepfather. Isn't he so good? He's the one that's speaking up for these children, and they're not even his children. And there were certainly a lot of people fawning over him. How disturbing. Okay, run it back a few seconds, and we'll hear what he's got to say about Cindy. None of it is surprising.
Paddy would sometimes drink and then, had words with Malaya, and she wanted to escape. She wanted to escape from that. But what the big driver was why Malaya wanted to move, she wanted to get away from Cindy.
Did Cindy? So at this point, is Cindy in Wentworth and Paddy? Where's Paddy? She obviously.
No, Cindy lived on College Road.
Is that in Wentworth?
That's right up the road from Paddy's.
Oh, okay.
Paddy's former residence, yeah.
Okay.
And
okay.
So Cindy would always criticize Malaya, and all this is true facts. I've experienced.
He always has to come back to Cindy. Always. And note how he has to throw in, and all this is true facts. In other words, this is a gross exaggeration. He cannot help himself. Any opportunity he has, he comes at Cindy. Yep. She's so awful. Why did Malaya call her on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day? That is exactly what it is. And you hear it so often from Daniel, where he throws up all this negative crap about Cindy, and you can tell that that's what Malaya was getting in her ear from him. Look what Malaya's doing. Look what Cindy's doing. Look how she's putting you down. She's so horrible to you. She doesn't appreciate you. She's she's critical of you when she shouldn't be. All these things. He would have been giving Malaya all that sort of stuff the entire time that they were together, because Cindy was the biggest threat to his hold over Malaya. And now he's ramped it up because in his mind, Cindy won. In his mind, Cindy convinced Malaya to leave when he had that stranglehold. So now he's going to throw her under the bus whenever he can. Yeah. I've seen that with friends of mine who've been in coercive relationships where their husband or their partner has worked really, really hard to undermine their relationship with family to the point where they are even more isolated. It is such a classic strategy. I'm not sure. Maybe he does. I think the biggest thing here is that Cindy was a threat. She was the biggest threat to his control over Malaya and over the children. And I do get a feel that Cindy is quite a strong woman as well. I mean, so many nurses that I know. Well, everyone I know who's a nurse is usually a no-nonsense sort of person. But yeah, it's all about let's attack Cindy. Yeah, I just reread what you said, Charlotte, and it is hard when a relationship's been undermined like that. It can feel like it will never be the same. Yeah. And that's how you end up with these people getting caught in cults. Oh, yeah. Because you can bet the amount of tension between Cindy and Malaya while Daniel and Malaya were together would have been a lot. So for her to keep showing up every day, for her to keep making sure that she was having contact with Malaya, for her to keep making sure that Malaya was taking the children to her place, it is, kudos to her. Yep, he really does hate Cindy, like with a vengeance, you can tell. I would imagine in his mind, had Cindy not stepped in, Malaya would still be with him. And in his mind, he probably also thinks that if that was the case, all this would be over by now because Malaya would have stood by his side and they would have been able to convince the RCMP that they're completely innocent. Yeah, Wade was in a difficult situation, that's for sure. Being able to see it from that slight distance. And I think that's what made that so unique. I really disagree with that sort of underhanded tactics from anyone. He claims he's not a content creator, but the fact that he recorded that audio and put it out online, that makes you a content creator. I disagree with the way he did it, but what we have from Wade is valuable information. And people are critical, like, oh, fancy Wade sharing this with a perfect stranger. Sometimes that's the safest way of venting. He didn't know this guy was recording. He thought he was just venting to a stranger who wasn't going to then turn around and say to Cindy, this is what he said. He thought he was just venting with someone who was coming into his life for that brief moment in time and would be gone after that, and, you know, didn't matter what he said. And Tint basically put it out as audio. Oh yeah. We know about the other reasons. His treatment of women in Ottawa, and the fact that he's so cocky about it. Yep. I know exactly what you're referring to. I mean, he even admitted it on his channel like it was a badge of honor. Sadly, I do think that Malaya getting the vehicle and getting the plates, I do think that was probably a huge trigger. And welcoming TJ's mum also. Oh, they were underage? That makes it even worse. That really makes it even worse. I haven't actually, I didn't see where he was talking about it on his channel, but I've heard it from very reliable people. I know that some people who are good at researching also did the research and looked up the situation. But I hadn't realised that they were underage. But yeah, I think Malaya getting the vehicle was the catalyst. He felt threatened. I think when they were out on Thursday and Friday, they must have collected more rugs for Daniel, in my opinion. Whatever the cost of getting the plates for the vehicle, that would have added to the financial stress. So I think that was the tipping point. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. The thing that basically led to Daniel just completely losing his shiz. As for the vehicle not having plates on the Friday, I think he intentionally was holding off putting plates on that vehicle because he was afraid that she would leave if that vehicle had plates on it. Yeah, they're probably making fun of him. They're probably doing Daniel impersonations. Oh, me too, Deborah. Me too. I usually star it when it comes through in my email, and for some reason I forgot to mark it with a star. And yeah, that's a good reminder. My biggest problem is either I pay it the moment I get the email, or like I'll pay it the following pay. But then it's like we get the renewal notice like 6 weeks before it's due. So it's really, really easy to forget. My birthday? You're on 26th of August, are you? I'm 25th So that would make you 26 if you are referring to me, or is someone else put in there about birthdays and I've just gone in actually, that's a good question. Was it partly because of the plates? I do think when you listen to the audio that it sounds like he refused to hand over keys. But it's also possible that, you know, maybe she was told, you know, you can't drive it without plates on it. Although someone said that if you, yeah, thanks. So I think Karen was saying this last week, that you put like a thing on the dash. 28. 1 day, 3 days, near enough. Yeah, I got that. Thank you. I saw that this morning and I'm going to have a look at it because that fascinates me. No, I think it would remain valid, but you would be expected to put the plates on as soon as possible. I would imagine that if you had that permit and you got pulled over, you would certainly be asked, why haven't you put the plates on yet? Here, the plates have got to go on the car before you can drive it. You cannot drive a vehicle on the road without plates. Even if it's plates from the dealer, dealer plates while you're doing a test drive. But the moment that vehicle leaves the car yard or wherever, it's got to have plates on it. The only exception is you can get a permit to drive to transport to get the plates. So like here in Victoria, you have to have a vehicle inspection first before any vehicles can change hands or before a vehicle can be registered. So obviously you would be able to get a permit to drive it only to get it checked, like to the mechanics to get it checked, and only to the to transport to get the plates. But after that, it would be an offence to drive it without plates. But I would imagine if the permit's like 30 days, they would have to allow for some people not being able to put the plates on immediately, perhaps. I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I'm willing to be corrected by anybody from Nova Scotia who is able to actually clarify that. I think that's a good place to end there. I think I'm getting that lunchtime brain fog going on, so it's definitely time for me to go and get some lunch. Car needs inspection in Nova Scotia every 2 years. You can get a temporary plate or a dealer plate depending on where you purchase from. The only inspections that have to happen here is if a car changes hands. So even my old car, I gave it to my niece because she was learning to drive. And even though I was giving it to her, I still had to get it checked over by a mechanic and get everything fixed. Oh, I could imagine that being so exposed there that the salt would eat the cars. here in Bendigo, it's more about the heat. A lot of vehicles around here you see with the paint coming off the bonnets and the roofs and stuff, because we get sun here, like probably, well, this winter was different, but nearly every day is sunny here and we get the heat. So the main problem here is just the Duco coming off because of the heat. Oh, wow. Bought inexpensive metal furniture and it lasted a year before it crumbled. Wowzers. Yep. The big thing for me is all the boggy areas. So many boggy areas when I look at the map, and even Daniel talks about it, and I've heard other people talk about it. Because the way he talks, it does sound like they could potentially be buried somewhere where it's boggy. There's a lot of areas to check, which is alarming. Yeah, I was quite amazed. Because I think of it in terms of like Australia, where, you know, we've just got bush. We don't get bog very much. Oh, good to see you in here, Fred. Welcome in, and thanks for coming in. Anyway, time for me to wrap it up because I can tell by the pauses that it's definitely time for me to go and get some lunch. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you for coming in. Very much appreciate everyone who comes in, spends the time listening to my channel. Please hit the like on the way out. That helps me out a lot. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. And also, please, if you're listening on replay, leave a comment. Even if you are listening now on live, additional comments are always welcome. So on that note, thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.